I'm sitting here reading about Gaza. I'm sitting here reading about what's happening in Hollywood with screenwriters. I could be sitting here reading about what's happening in the UK Parliament, and or maybe even in India. Like I'm sitting here reading about the elections, reading about propaganda, all these. I'm like, why do I need to know so much all the time? Because we also are rewarding people when they say he knows or they know. Absolutely, again, this is the other extreme, being ignorant, right? Being ignorant, knowing nothing. That's not what I'm saying. Just like, oh, you can't just be all being. But I think it's good to just fucking take a break and understand the information that you know. Hello, my friend, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I have been giving this thought a lot of thought. How about that? You know, the thing is, I've been trying to understand a little bit more about myself, and I think that's why I try doing these solo episodes, to kind of let those thoughts kind of run around in my head and then come out in some form on this, so I can give it more of a structured kind of understanding, as opposed to just random thoughts flowing around in my head and making no sense of it. So this is kind of my attempt to make sense of what I've been thinking about, what I'm attempting to understand about myself, and also, more importantly, the things that have led me to where I am, the social conditioning, the various kind of influences that have led me down the various paths that I took, but more importantly, the decisions, the consequences. But what drove those decisions, what drove those consequences, what resulted in the actions I took, and in a nutshell, what the things that shaped the way I look at myself in this context of life, and how that affects me, whether it's with career, whether it's with, if you want to call it, purpose, whether it's with relationships and money and these primary ideas of success and failure and happiness and sadness and good and bad. I've been thinking about it, and I think the first thing that sort of I arrived at was this idea of doing, right? We call ourselves human beings, and that's the sort of species which is dominant in today's time, not for much longer. But the doing aspect, I think, has taken over, because just this morning before recording this, I was sitting and thinking about where I am today, right? Whether it's with the career choices, giving up stand up for the past 2 years, maybe not giving up. Well, let's be honest, giving up because I haven't been on stage in a while. Taking a break is the more accepted thing in my own head, because giving up sounds so final and saying I'm done with that chapter. But maybe that is the reality. Maybe I'll get back on stage in a few years when I feel I have something to say and I enjoy the process of getting on stage, telling jokes, traveling, telling jokes, meeting new people, telling jokes. I don't feel that right now. So, hey, you know what? I'm going to be honest to myself and just say, let's move on. So, when you take up new things, especially in a creative space, right, it takes time. It takes a lot of uncertainty to become okay with uncertainty, whether it's with this podcast, which I've been doing now for the past 2.5, maybe closing in on 3 years, in this format, which was, of course, the solo podcast for, wow, okay, 3 years before that. So it's been a while, and even working on the book, which is taking its own course, it takes its own iterations, it takes its own set of process of rejection and change based on that rejection and inputs which you're given in during the process, and other things that I'm working on, right? So I'm just sitting this morning, and I haven't been doing things which I used to do a lot more, in the sense, just the idea of doing, right? Earlier it was like, not like I was the most disciplined comedian, but there was this thing that you have to do which results in getting on stage, telling jokes. And the doing would have been various things, from actually sitting down, putting thoughts in whatever format, whether it's points or writing new material or thinking of new jokes. Then it's the other aspects of comedy, which was how to get gigs, how to book new gigs, how to book new venues, how to book your travel, and basically a lot of doing. And even since then and now, the doings in my life are different, right? It's you have to do things in certain roles, as a father, as a brother, as a husband, as a son. And besides those things, you do things for yourself, right? Which is you exercise your mind, exercise your body, you exercise your will to do other things, which is socializing, playing a sport, whatever it may be. In my case, I do things on a daily basis. But even things like getting online and checking email or surfing or getting information, all these things are a part of the doing process. So this morning I was sitting and I didn't really do anything, right? I mean, I did the basics, right? Took care of myself in the morning, went to the loo, not like you need those details, but I had a cup of coffee. So all those things are a part of doing. But what is being in itself, right? Is it Is it just this idea of sitting? Because we call it meditation. When you sit with your thoughts, you focus on your breath. But the closest I've come to being is maybe, I'm just sitting with my thoughts, maybe not in a certain posture, a certain place on a certain mat, calling it a certain act, but just sitting. Even that is doing, if you suppose. But to get past the semantics, I think just being is such an essential moment or moments that we've ignored because we've kind of disguised, we disguised a lot of doing as being. And I think as a result, again, being is so important because it's one of those things that you don't realize until you actually sit and understand what it does to you. It is a part of you, but it's a part that we tend to ignore because it's seen. Being, which is maybe, if you want to give it a definition, is just sitting with your thoughts and not knowing the answer is a very scary thing. And it's been given certain labels, right? Because we call it lazy, we call it dreaming, we call it daydreaming, or we call it, on a larger thing, a person who just is seen as a loser, seen as a failure, because we've given so much emphasis to the doing, right? Whether it's with learning, the quick learners are rewarded, the slow learners are called slow learners. People who are go-getters are seen as the more, preferable form of humans that we have to kind of copy and follow in their footsteps. And this whole idea of doing is great. I think that's why we are where we are. If we were just being, take it as far back as cavemen, we would just be sitting in the cave being, which I don't see a problem. Anyway, but if there's only doing, which is what a lot of us do now, and a lot of the emphasis is on just doing, I think that's as scary as well, because you don't really then have a moment even to look at the core of who you are, the essence of what makes you a human being. You're just defined by the things that you do. You attach yourself to those labels, whether it's the roles you play in life or whether it's the acts that you perform in life, whether it's your exercise, whether it's your work, whether it's your hobbies, whether it's your passion. And a combination of these acts and the roles that you play kind of take over the entire thing that you are, which is your being. And without those attachments of role and acts, you kind of feel empty. And the more you go along in life without taking a moment to appreciate who you are, without these attachments, without these roles, without these acts that you perform on a daily basis, the longer you go, the scarier it is. And isn't that the basic foundation from where we need to look at life, as opposed to all the various messaging and all the various things that we are told to do and the things that we are told to be, and even told to be by whom, right? Why do we have to be a certain way, which is prescribed by others or people who went before us or people who are presently in power or presently the popular narrative? Why do we have to be a certain thing to be a part of a larger community? Because I think the idea of that we are all able to understand who we are as a being, that automatically gives us a foundation to get together with other beings. I think we, under the guise of doing, are creating this idea of community and excluding or including based on that, which is dangerous, right? Because then it's very easy to be manipulated. And this word, it comes up in various contexts of the podcast. I spoke about manipulation before, but it's important because I think when you are just being driven by the doing and you're constantly focused on that without appreciating the being part of you, it could easily lead you down a path where you get confused, you get pulled in different directions, you're told by various other influences how to be, and again, it's not, I use the word be there, but I think how to be really means how to do and how to, according to their opinion, find a sense of place or a sense of purpose or a sense of situation in this life, when actually you already have the answer. It's just that you have to kind of spend some time away from the doing to look at the being, which is again scary. And again, all being might not be a situation which help you feed yourself or even find some of the desires that are important in this life, because I think it's good to have desires. But if it's only driven by the desires, the roles, the acts, that's where we are today in this mess. And the reason I brought this idea up to myself when I was thinking is because I was scared. I was scared of the uncertainty because I was like, where's the podcast going to go? Where is the book going to go? What am I going to do? Because I have a 2-year-old daughter in my life and I need to provide for her. And we do need the tool of money, which is an important tool to have. And the few minutes, of course, it's not like I spent 3 hours like doing Vipassana in an ashram. It was just like on my chair, the chair you see I'm sitting on right now. You don't see it, but I'm sitting on it. It literally terrified me. But the idea of just being was something that I wanted to understand. And as raw as it sounds, which I'm kind of talking to you about, but I don't have all the answers, but it's something I want to share with you, is that I find the importance of that because so much of your life goes just on the doing, because that is conditioned for you to see as a success or a failure, right? If you do and you do it well, you're a success. If you do it and you do it badly, you're a failure, but you at least tried. And that's why people say, at least he tried, or at least she tried, and it gave it 100%. That without the foundation of the being, if you're constantly feeling judged and validated or not validated and accepted or not accepted or worth or not worth it, because only the doing matters, and if you don't have an appreciation of the being who you are, it really is a place where you feel lost, you feel confused, you feel dejected, and you feel entirely kind of in a free fall. And nothing wrong with feeling dejected, nothing wrong with feeling despair. I think all these are things that makes you a person that lives, right? Because it's not just rainbows and butterflies, as they say, but it is also like some of the clogged toilets that you have to kind of get your way around. You got to put the plunger in and take that shit out. But the reason I thought about all this, besides the few moments I spent, the minutes I spent, is also this thing I'm going to try doing, which is take a break from information, be it golf instructional videos I watch on YouTube, or tournaments, or reading the news, or reading articles based on that news, or listening to podcasts like be it Joe Rogan, be it Tucker Carlson, be it Tim Ferriss, be it Lex Friedman. These are the kinds of podcasts I listen to. Or even reading books on, whether it's on Vedanta, whether it's about the Yoga Sutras, or whatever it may be I'm reading, or maybe even books on meditation. Or I'm just going to take a break because I figured we don't have a break from information, right? We do the detoxes, we put our phones away. But whatever information it may be, I was just telling my wife yesterday, does it really matter? I was saying a day before, I could be telling her right now before this, that I'm sitting here reading about Gaza. I'm sitting here reading about what's happening in Hollywood with screenwriters. I could be sitting here reading about what's happening in the UK Parliament, what's happening with Trump and Biden, or maybe even in India. Like I'm sitting here reading about the elections, reading about propaganda, all these. I'm like, why do I need to know so much all the time? Why do I need to be so keyed in all the fucking time? Because we also are rewarding people when they say he knows, or they know, or it's good to be in the know. Absolutely. Again, this is the other extreme, being ignorant, right? Being ignorant, knowing nothing. That's not what I'm saying. Just like, oh, you can't just be all being. But I think it's good to just fucking take a break and understand the information that you know. Because we say the word know so loosely, but do we really know? We just can repeat, we can pretend, we can kind of argue, we can debate, but do we really know? Because I think the knowing comes from processing the information with all the things that you have lived life with, the tools, the ideas, the things that worked out, the things that didn't work out, the successes, the failures, the rejections, all those things that make you a being, help you take the information that you get in, and then you can say, I know, because along with that knowing and the knowledge comes the wisdom. And a lot of us are just fucking taking the information in without any wisdom and spouting it out. We take it in one day, we take something else in the other day. We have no time to process it from the foundation of being a human being. And I think that's where the problem is, and that's why we're stuck in this mess. And I don't have the answers. I just want to experience what I'm trying to do. I don't know if I'll be successful or fail, but I think essentially appreciating who I am as a being might help me give myself a chance to face whatever I decide to do today or tomorrow or the day after, and also what I've done in the past, and also appreciate the things that I do and understand the information and the knowledge that comes my way. Because as an individual human being, I think that's the only place that I can come from without feeling like I'm being pulled, manipulated, torn, lost, whether I'm a failure or a success in someone else's eyes, whether I can make sense of this life. And I think that's the place I want to start looking from. So I just thought I'll share that with you. And if it made absolutely no sense to any of you, fucking great. Because you know what? Hey, I'm a unique individual. Did I just say and unique? I'm so sorry for ending it on that note. But I mean, before going on another rant, I think that's it. It doesn't have to make sense to all of us at the same time, but I think it makes life that much more interesting because we each arrive at a certain point in our journey at certain times. We don't all have to be racing along at the same speed towards the same destination. The destination is fucking clear. We're all going to die, but we all get there at different places. So I hope you enjoy being. Thanks for listening to this episode. And of course, I do appreciate you coming in every week. Do share it with someone you think. Fucking don't do any of that. If you feel like it, have fun and just chill and just be. All right. Cheers. Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you liked what you heard, please do check out the other episodes on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And I would much appreciate it if you could like the video, share it with people who you think might enjoy it. And of course, do subscribe to the channel because it will help me and the podcast grow and reach more people just like you. So thanks again. Appreciate it.